Welcome back to FedSmart Podcast. Today we have a great episode. We're bringing you about milestones to look at for retirement.
Yeah.
So,
Milestone ages, baby.
milestone ages, yes. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to kick it off with those under 50. So you want to get us going, Jesse, on what to look at there?
Yeah, definitely. We're going to look at those different milestone ages as you got retirement either on the horizon or super far off. You've got many peaks
Or
and
you just
valleys to
started.
go over. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just got hired, or maybe you just retired. If you're already retired, we're also going to have some information for you as well. So if you're not yet retired, don't check out. Maybe you'll want to skip maybe the first couple ages and fast forward a little bit, or learn about maybe there's some
You can
updated
reminisce
things.
of your early years.
Yeah, and look back and say, man, I did it right, or I wish I would have done it a little bit different. And then you can share that wisdom with your friends and colleagues that are in their 30s and 40s. But we're looking at milestone ages specifically for retirement. So there's other things to consider when it comes to other benefits, like maybe health insurance and life insurance, but we're looking at it through the realm of preparing for retirement. Like I said, maybe years off or within a few years, everybody will get a lot of good information, including those that are retired. And we're going to start with, for those of you who might have just been recently hired, if you're basically in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, you're under the age of 50, what you want to look at to prepare for retirement. So when you're very, very first hired, I highly encourage you to, go to a webinar or a seminar about retirement so that you can fully understand what benefits you're entitled to, what your pension looks like, what your supplement will be if you're not yet Social Security age, your TSP. Don't just blindly put your head in the sand and don't invest that. Just keep it in the G fund because you're not sure, or keep it in one of the target date funds, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you want to do something educated. You want to do it based on information that you learn for your specific situation. So when you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, don't think, oh, I'll start planning for retirement when I get in my 50s or 60s. That's an old man or an old woman's game. That's not for me. I've got years and years. Actually, having years and years is the most powerful thing that you have on your side. Having years until you retire, the statistics are overwhelming, showing that the earlier you start planning for retirement, contributing to your TSP, the more likely you are to be comfortable. Somebody who starts, Stephen, putting in their TSP in their 20s and 30s are going to have a much higher balance on average compared to somebody who starts in their 50s and even puts 3, 4, or 5 times as the amount that you would have been putting back in your 20s and 30s, because you're getting interest upon interest, growth upon growth over time. And having that time to allow things to build up is going to be what really, really helps you have a healthy TSP balance, more likely to retire in your 50s and early 60s compared to working longer. So if you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, and you hear, oh, this is about retirement, don't check out. In fact, be diligent, be intentional about what your ideal retirement one day, and start working towards that. So if you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, some things that you can do is you want to look at when you're first going to be eligible to retire. You want to look at the different eligibilities that we've talked about prior, but real quick, I'll go through them. If you've reached what's called your minimum retirement age, which is based on your year of birth, that's the earliest you can retire, which is between age 55 and 57. But for most of you that are in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, it's going to be age 57 that you're going to be able to retire. Some of you, if you're in your later 40s, it might be a little bit earlier, but 57 is probably what you're shooting for. And you need 30 years of service to retire at 57 or at your minimum retirement age. So look at it. Am I going to, at 57, am I going to have 30 years? Am I even going to be eligible? That maybe yes, maybe no. If that's when you're first eligible, then you can start maybe planning for, I want to go out as soon as I possibly can. And you can start proactively making decisions that will help you leave at your earliest possible time. If it's not 57, maybe you'll be eligible at 60, because you can go at age 60 and have at least 20 years of service. Then you can go as well, or age 62 with 5 or more years. Now, Stephen, there are some other exceptions with the government. There's always
Lots of exceptions
exceptions,
this year, right?
and so you can look at some of the exceptions. When we get to some of the milestone ages, we'll talk about some of the exceptions, but that's when you can shoot for a full unreduced pension, unless you're offered early outs and things like that. We have early retirement options. We do have a podcast talking about some of um, uh, those exceptions and when you could go. So if you're wondering about when you might be able to go based on some earlier things like early outs and MRA plus 10 and other thing like that, check out the early retirement options. But otherwise, like I said, those are the three main eligibilities under the FERS system for regular FERS. If you're special provisions like air traffic controllers, firefighters, and law enforcement, we also have a podcast for that. We're not going to go through that because a lot of times that does muddy information, but we did do a podcast for you guys. We didn't leave you out. Go check out the special provisions. So again, if you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, look at when you're first eligible, and then you can start from there and start figuring out, am I going to be able to go in my mid 50s or early 60s when I'm first eligible? That's what you want to know. The second thing that you really want to do is make sure you're contributing as much as you possibly can to your TSP. And please try to put in at least 5%
Yeah,
to
at
get
least
the
get the
5%.
match.
At least
Yeah.
get the match.
And then the
100%
TSP
return.
contribution limit for you guys is 23,500. If you can max that out every year, you're going to be way ahead of the game. Like Jesse's saying, you're going to have a lot more years to plan. If you start planning ahead of time and hitting that max, you're going to be in really good shape.
Yeah, and a lot of people, you might hear that, maybe not a lot, but some of you hear that and you're like, there's no way I could contribute that. I have 3 kids. Trust me, Stephen and I are dads. We know what it is to have kids, and
Oh
maybe
yeah.
you can't contribute that much, but even if you're contributing, a couple hundred a month or, 100 a month or 5% and get that 5% match for now, and in the future, the plan of increasing that over time, but, put in at least 5%, put in what you can so that you're not, shying away from contributing. And again, thinking, oh, I'll start that in my 50s and 60s. You are missing out on massive, massive opportunity. Go Google, look at YouTube videos showing, contributing to retirement accounts in your 20s compared to waiting to your 50s. Look at the difference. It's astronomical. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, the opportunity cost of waiting and missing out. So contribute to that TSP as soon as you can. Do not wait, and do at least the match. Do at least the match. And then, like I said, lastly, at this age, you want to do some research, and almost certainly you want to stay aggressive in the TSP. Don't park it in the G fund because you don't understand the market. You're scared of the market. Get educated. Understand the difference of having, an higher average annual return and taking advantage of dollar cost averaging and putting into the market over time. And again, starting sooner and staying aggressive when you're years out from retirement. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of potential difference in your TSP balance. So 20s, 30s, 40s, start as soon as you can. Talk to somebody who's retiring soon or already retired. They will resoundingly tell you, I wish I would have started sooner, or I'm glad I started sooner. So you want to start as soon as possible. So now, Stephen, as we get into our 50s, we get to 50 years young, and looking at the age of 50, that milestone age, when we're looking at retirement planning, what's some things to know about as we enter into our young age of 50s?
Yeah, well, there's actually a lot to look at 50 and above. One of the things you're going to want to kind of start looking at is your FEGLI, your life insurance costs, especially for those having any multiples of option B. That's the one where it takes your salary and multiplies it by 1 through 5, whatever you had initially selected. A lot of people forgot that when they started in their 20s or maybe early 30s, they signed up for that, and it was very inexpensive at that time. But really at age 50, you'll notice probably if you look at a leave and earnings statement that that cost is starting to go up, and it will significantly increase every 5 years after. So that's going to be something really, really important to look at. Also, your contribution limits. You get a catch-up contribution limit for your TSP as well. That's going to be something that you can capitalize on to get more retirement savings in there. And like Jesse was mentioning, that's when the first kind of thresholds of retirement start happening, whether it's MRA or if you look at our early retirement options with VERAs and that kind of thing. There's just a ton to really look at 50.
Yeah. And what's the catch-up amount for 2025 as of the recording?
7,500. So I think your total is 31,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I
Yep.
keep going off of 2024 numbers. I mean, it's already June as of the recording of this call,
Yeah,
and
it's
I mean, it's like,
31,000 total,
yeah,
7,500 catch up.
yeah. So if you didn't take advantage of it in your 20s, 30s, 40s, Stephen, we talk to people all the time that get hired in their early 50s and they didn't have access to a 401k or a TSP. And it's okay. Again, we want you to start 20s, 30s, 40s, but don't feel bad if you weren't able to contribute because again, now at 50, like Stephen's saying, we do have the catch-up provision, which you have the match, or excuse me, the maximum that you can contribute that everybody else has. Then you have something called the catch-up provision, like Stephen said, which is an additional amount on top of it that you're allowed to contribute. Now, keep in mind that you can contribute to either traditional TSP or Roth TSP up to those limits. So the total of your contributions to the two
That's a
different
good point. Yep.
accounts are up to that maximum. So you could do some Roth, some traditional, all Roth, all traditional, whatever you'd like to do. As of right now, the match still goes into the traditional, but you also want to start learning, as soon as possible, the difference between Roth and traditional and tax-free in retirement compared to, pre-tax contributions now. Again, we also have a podcast on the difference between Roth and traditional, but you can contribute up to the maximum. And here's an important thing that we always tell people in your 50s. The Roth TSP, anybody actively employed can contribute to the Roth TSP. A lot of people think, Stephen, our air traffic controllers, our doctors, and some of our
Yeah, that there's an
higher
income
income
limit.
earners, yeah,
Yeah,
they think there's income limit, which in the
but
Roth
there's not. Yeah.
yeah, in the Roth TSP, anybody can contribute. Even if you're making a high income, you can still contribute to the Roth TSP if you'd like. And then again, basically the difference is you could potentially be creating some tax-free money for you in retirement. So take a look at the difference. And with those contribution limits, maybe we're putting some in traditional, maybe we're starting to take advantage of some Roth and create some tax-free money potentially in retirement as well. So then when we're looking at retirement, another big one to look at, another milestone age is age 55. And that's the earliest possible minimum retirement age for somebody. So minimum retirement age is between 55 and 57. Now, a lot of people listening, 55 is kind of come and gone based on the year that you were born, but 55 is the earliest possible minimum retirement age. So that's maybe if you have 30 years, that's when you can go. So 55. The other huge key thing with 55 is if you're separating the year you're turning 55 or older, that basically you're retiring or you're separating. So you don't even have to be actually retiring and taking a pension. But if you're leaving the federal service the year you're turning 55 or older, you can touch your traditional TSP penalty free. So other retirement accounts out there, individual IRAs, you have to wait till you're 59 and a half for most withdrawals to touch penalty free. But in the TSP, if you're separating the year you turn 55 or older and you want to pull from your TSP, you can touch it without the 10% penalty. You're still going to pay taxes. Taxes are inevitable, but we're saying usually there's an additional 10% penalty for early withdrawals. In the TSP, there is not. Now, Stephen mentioned at 50, you want to start looking at your FEGLI and especially that option B. Well, at 55, you really want to look at it. It actually, between age 50 and 55, it doubles in cost. So whatever a 50-year-old was paying for the same death benefit, now at 55, your cost is doubling. And then as we talk about here in a second, it's going to double again at 60.
Yeah, more
So
than double.
yeah, more than double. So you want to keep an eye on it. Take a look at that FEGLI, that the optional coverage. Your basic, the one that is your salary plus $2,000 death benefit, that one, the cost does not go up as you get older. Okay. But we're talking about those optional coverages. Keep an eye on that. The other thing about age 55 is, again, statistically, this is a very, very common age where people start looking at retirement planning. Hopefully you listened to FedSmart and you started looking at it a lot sooner, but 55 is when people start to feel like, okay, every day from here on out, I'm closer to 60 and I'm starting to get to retirement age. Now I'm going to start taking retirement serious and I'm going to start looking at it. So hopefully you started before 55, but if you haven't been looking at retirement, 55 is a milestone age to really pay attention to that. And so between 55 and 57, we're going to lump 57 in with 55. That's your MRA. That's your minimum retirement age. So between the age of 55 and 57, Stephen, that's the first that a regular FERS can go out with an unreduced pension. Okay. Also, between age 55 and 57, there's something called MRA plus 10, where maybe you can go and you can go with a penalty if you have 10 or more years. And we talk about that in detail in our early retirement options podcast a few episodes ago. Also, if you've reached your minimum retirement age, that gives you the opportunity, as you'll learn about in that early retirement options podcast, to maybe postpone your retirement. And later on, when you restart your pension, maybe you'll be able to restart your health insurance and all that as well. And so 55 to 57, your minimum retirement age is a pretty big milestone age. That's a big one. So pay attention between age 55 and 57 to that milestone age for you. Now, our next milestone age that we've got coming up is 59 and a half, the infamous 59 and a half that a lot of you have heard about. Stephen, 59 and a half, what revolves around 59 and a half? And tell me, why is it 59 and a half, not 59 or 60? Solve that for me as well.
So 59 and a half is a big milestone because you can actually access your TSP while you're working, or you can roll it into an IRA while you're working as well. You can do a non-hardship transfer. So that's the big deal with 59 and a half.
Yep, you have access. If you're still employed, you can pull, age-based in-service withdrawal, like Steven said, roll it. You can pull it. If you have the Roth side and you've had the Roth TSP for 5 or more years, and now you've hit 59 and a half, you can pull from the Roth both what you put in and now the interest tax-free. So 59 and a half is a big milestone. And as we talked about, other retirement accounts like traditional IRAs and things like that, now you can also access those without penalty at 59 and a half for most withdrawals as well. You can now access it at 59 and a half. So you're able to do that. Now, again, why is it 59 and a half? That's what the IRS says. That's what they've established. It's not 59, it's not 60, but once you're literally 59 and a half, 59 years old and 6 months from your 6 months from your 59th birthday, you can now access your TSP while you're still working and do age-based in-service withdrawals. And the big difference there is you're able to pull from the TSP and it's not going to interrupt your match. It's not going to interrupt your contributions and, cause any kind of interruption in what your funds are doing. It's not closing your TSP. Okay, so now you can access your TSP even if you're still working once you reach 59 and a half. Also, for those of you who did retire maybe years ago at age 52, you left and you left your TSP or you moved it into an IRA. Again, now you can access that at 59 and a half. You didn't separate the year you were turning 55 or older. Maybe you were younger. And so now at 59 and a half, you can start touching those retirement accounts if you so choose, if you'd like to. So age 59 and a half, pay attention to that.
Watch your taxes too, especially if you're working.
Yeah, your favorite Uncle Sam wants his piece. So be careful. Anything you withdraw from the traditional TSP is looked at as taxable income. So you want to be aware of that for sure. Keep an eye on that. So the following April, you don't get a nasty surprise with that big tax bill. Now, 59 and a half, there are some differences though when we do reach 60. 60, like we said, that's another eligibility. If you didn't have 30 years, Stephen, how many years do we need to go at 60?
20 years at 60. Also, if you're looking at postponement, like Jesse mentioned, that could be a threshold to start your pension as well. If you're postponing, say you make it to MRA and you had 20 years of service, well, you could postpone till 60 and get your pension started at that age as well.
Yep, exactly. So that's a milestone age where now you might be eligible for retirement or eligible to start your pension. Age 60 is a very common age to retire. And one of the things we didn't fully talk about, but if you went at 30 years and your MRA, or you go at 60 with 20 years, as of right now, you're also eligible for something called the supplement. So at your MRA and 30 years and age 60 with 20 years, you're going to get your pension, but you're also going to get something from OPM called the FERS supplement, which is where they give you a payment that is meant to be a portion of your Social Security. It doesn't come from Social Security, but your FERS, you're supposed to be getting Social Security. That's a part of your retirement plan, but you're not 62 yet. And as we'll talk about in a second, 62 is when you're eligible for Social Security. But if you go at MRA and you have 30 years, or you go at 60 and you have 20 years, in addition to your pension, you're also going to be eligible for something called the supplement. The supplement calculation we go through in our other podcasts. You can look at what the supplement would look like, but they're going to give you a calculation and give you a portion of your Social Security, and then that will last until the next milestone age that we're talking about, which is 62. So if you've retired and you're getting that supplement at 62, your supplement's going to start. Your supplement's going to stop because your Social Security could start. So at 62, another milestone age, and actually a very big milestone age for a lot of reasons. Again, if you have 5 or more years at 62, you can go with a unreduced pension. You can go with no penalty on your pension at 62 with 5 or more years. But also at 62, that's when you're eligible to first start your actual Social Security. So you could be getting your pension and your Social Security if you'd like. Now, when you're getting your supplement or you're getting Social Security before your full retirement age, you're going to have an earnings limit. You're going to be limited on how much you can earn from actual wages, not your pension, not withdrawals from retirement accounts, but actual wages. You're limited on how much you can earn when you're getting your supplement or your Social Security. So maybe if you have part-time work, or you have a job, or you're still working, you more than likely won't want to start your Social Security yet, but that's when you're first eligible at age 62 to start your Social Security. That's when anybody in any section other than, disability, we're not talking about that. There's always exceptions to the rule. But as far as generally when you're first eligible for actual Social Security, we're talking about age 62. So that's a big milestone age. Then we've got the milestone age of age 65. So when you hit
Well, for
65,
62, real quick too, if you have 20 years of service at 62, you get a higher
oh
pension
yeah,
computation as well. So
yep.
instead of at 1% per year of service, the calculation's 10% higher, basically 1.1%. We have a whole podcast on that under retirement eligibility. But that's another big part of that threshold, is if you hit 62 at 20 years, it can make a substantial difference in your pension. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if you have a lot of years of service and a really good high 3, it could be pretty massive, actually.
Right. Yeah, actually, I mean, fantastic point, Stephen. Great point. And one of the main reasons we talk about these milestone ages, and one of the main reasons it's important to know that, because maybe you're thinking of retiring at 60, maybe even 61. Stephen, we've seen it many, many times. And then people are
Yeah, which is
surprised to find,
short. Yeah.
yeah, people are surprised to find out, if I work another year or 6 months or 24 months, I'm going to get this much more per month for the rest of my life. Like, I had no
This
idea.
year's a little funny though, Jesse. I bring that up and people are like, I don't care, I'm out of here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But at
I
least you
mean,
know, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
only you can decide. I talked to
Yeah.
some people, Steven, and it's like maybe 300 difference, and some people are like, 300 difference, I'm definitely going to that. Talk to other people like 300 difference, you couldn't, it needs to be 10 times that, and maybe not even that. I'm out
Yeah.
yesterday. Like you said, only you that are eligible can decide if at 62, that jump in pension is worth it. But to Steven's point, I mean, we've seen it sometimes where it's 600, 800. I've seen it $900 more a month for the rest of your life. If you have a pretty high 3, or if you've worked for the government for 30, 40 years, it can make a big difference sometime. We're definitely not saying you should always go at 62. Just be aware of what you could get at 62. And then you also have other things to consider, like, you would miss out on supplement payments for a couple years. And so we're not saying go at 62, but it's definitely a milestone age to be aware of. And one of the reasons, like, we go through this podcast, because it's something you want to know. The easiest decision to make is the one where you have all the information. So at least you won't find out later and say, wait, if I would have stuck around for 6 more months, I would have got this much more. So yeah, 62, that's important to know. And then that brings us into 65, 65 years young. 65 is the new 55. You're still young, you're still living it up, but now you're getting on Medicare. Medicare is at age 65. You can get Medicare A if you're still working. Medicare A, there's no cost for it, and you can wait on Medicare Part B if you're still working. You don't have to get Part B. You can get that later on, but it's when you're first eligible for Medicare under normal eligibilities. Age 65 is now Medicare age. It's also the first age where you could possibly have your Social Security full retirement age. So we're going to lump in a couple ages in this, Stephen. Between age 65 and 67 is something called your Social Security full retirement age, again, based on your year of birth. And that's the age where you can get your Social Security, you can draw your Social Security, and then you also don't have any earnings limit. So if you're still working, if you want, you can turn on your Social Security, get that, and your job earnings are not going to reduce your Social Security. If you're not working, if you're retired, it doesn't matter. Any earnings that you get, any job, any income, it's not now going to reduce your Social Security. So when you look at your Social Security statement, the three ages that usually jump out are 62 when you're first eligible, your full retirement age, 65, 66 and 6 months, 67, whenever that is for you, and then 70, which we'll talk about in a second. But those are your, different numbers that they give you right off the bat. And they're letting you know this is your Social Security benefit that you're going to get, and you don't have any earnings limit now. So if you're still working, sometimes there might be a reason to go ahead and turn on your Social Security. Maybe your spouse isn't working anymore or things like that, but you don't have that earnings limit anymore. So something to consider. But if you wait on your Social Security, you say, I don't want to take it yet, I'm still working, or I have enough income, or I just don't want to take it yet, and I want to maximize it, the highest possible age that you can get the highest possible Social Security is age 70. So even if you're still working or you're not, it doesn't matter. At age 70, your Social Security, that's when you want to turn it on. Now, what's really interesting is it doesn't always automatically turn on for you. I just talked to somebody that was 70 and 6 months, and they contacted Social Security, and Social Security back paid them those 6 months of missed payments and then have it going forward. But, it usually starts automatically at 70, but it doesn't always. So you want to pay attention to it, and there's no reason to wait. There's no reason to wait till 70 and a half or whatever. It's the highest possible Social Security benefit at that milestone age of age 70. So be aware of that. That's the highest possible Social Security. So then we have what used to be, I wrote an article years ago, Steve, about milestone ages, used to be 70 and a half. Now we have 73 as of right now. Stephen, what happens at 73?
Well, we got to bring up Uncle Sam again. He's going to want some more taxes. You have to start taking out required minimum distributions. That age will change, it looks like, here pretty soon, but as of right now, it's 73 is when you're going to have to start taking money out of your traditional or qualified accounts, meaning your tax deferred accounts like your traditional TSP, traditional IRAs, those kinds of accounts. You have to start withdrawing a percent out each year to pay taxes on them.
And that's if you're not working, you have to pull from your TSP. If you're still working at 73, you can actually wait to start pulling those required amounts.
But you still have to pull from IRAs.
Yep, exactly. So like Steven's saying, to be clear, any account that's not associated with the company that you're currently working at or agency you're working at, you do have to pull from that. But if you're still working, you can wait on your TSP with no penalties. You're not going to ever have to pull from your Roth, but that traditional TSP, you need to be careful of and watch that. And as of right now, the recording of the podcast, it's 73. In the year 2035, it goes up to age 75. That's when you'll have required minimum distributions. So check, based on your year of birth and when exactly you're going to have to start pulling it. If you're older, like you're older right now, as of the recording of this podcast, it's probably going to be 73 for you. If you're years out from retirement, it's going to be age 75 is your required minimum distributions. And each year, the IRS, based on actuary tables, tells TSP and IRAs and all the companies what percentage you have to pull. It's not TSP that decides it. It's not, if you have an account at a custodian, it's not that company that's deciding it. It's based on actuary tables that the IRS sets on what you actually have to pull from your retirement account. So you want to look at that and you want to plan for that years and years out, because if you have very healthy retirement account balances, Stephen, we talk to people all the time that now with their required amounts they have to pull from their traditional retirement accounts, some of them are getting bumped up tax brackets, and like the amount of taxes that they're pulling, some are going from 12% taxes to 22% taxes, almost doubling their federal taxes in some cases. And so you want to really pay attention, and maybe you want to start drawing from your TSP ahead of time, systematically draw down your taxable amounts, maybe so that at that milestone age of 73 or 75, you have a lot less tax
Or maybe look at some Roth
ramifications.
conversion stuff too. Like there's
Exactly.
a lot of things
Yep.
you can plan on ahead of time.
Yep, exactly. Intentionally being proactive, like we said, knowing these things. And that's why we're going through these milestone ages, because maybe you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and you haven't really thought about it that, yeah, down the road, I'm going to have these required minimum distributions. Maybe I'm going to put more into my Roth, or like Steven said, do some Roth conversions and things like that, or start pulling sooner than I planned and start just putting it in savings. So I've already paid taxes on it and I don't have as big of tax ramifications. So those are a lot of the really big milestone ages, to consider, to look at. And so when you're looking at retirement planning, those are some of the key ages and milestone things to think about. Maybe there's a few things that we should add or take away. Mention in the comments if there's anything else that we missed as we're trying to go through it. We always want to make sure we hit on some of the milestone ages, but there's always good input and other things to consider when we're looking at it. Definitely talk to a financial professional, a tax professional if you're looking at taxes and worried about taxes, and look at those different professionals helping you for those milestone ages to consider taxes and withdrawals and trusts and beneficiaries and all that kinds of fun stuff that you have to consider when you're looking at retirement planning. So this has been FedSmart with our milestone ages when it comes to retirement planning. We know you've got some valuable information out of it. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thanks for being a fan of FedSmart, Stephen. Real quick, we'd be remiss not to mention that our FedSmart podcast, as of June of this year, already passed 11 million views this year. So on viewing our reels and our podcasts and our educational posts. And so we just can't thank you guys enough for being part of the FedSmart community. We really enjoy working with all of you and educating all of you and sharing the information that we learned. So thank you so much, Stephen. 11 million views. That's crazy.
Thank you guys. That's awesome.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a great rest of your year. And for those of you who are retiring soon, within the next year or two, we hope it's as smooth of a retirement transition as possible. For those of you who are years out, hopefully you're being intentional. You're starting to look at your retirement and you're planning ahead of time. We'll see you on the next one.
See you on the next one.
FedSmart Podcast is meant for informational purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice or tax advice. FedSmart Podcast is not affiliated with any government agency or OPM. Jesse Black and Steven Puckett offer advisory services through Integrity Wealth. Integrity Wealth and FedSmart are not affiliated. If you'd like an appointment, please go to fedsmartretirement.com and schedule a free one-on-one appointment. Thank you.